Alright everybody, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and look at solving proportions. Do you remember these phrases or something that you've seen in math, something like miles per hour or dollars per pound? Okay, so these are unit rates, and the key here is that we're using the word per. When you use the word per, you are dividing something, so these are called ratios. They're types of ratios. Alright, so a ratio uses division to compare two quantities. You can write the ratio of two quantities A and B where B is not equal to 0. Now, let me explain that. Don't want to get into too much details, but you don't want to divide by 0. Okay, it doesn't exist. The number doesn't exist, but we're not going to get into that. So B can't be 0. All right, there are a few things you need to know about ratios. There's different ways in which you can talk about a ratio. Here you have A to B, the A colon to B, and then of course the most common one we're going to use is A divided by B. Each ratio is read the ratio of A to B. So each of these right here, these examples are read as the ratio of A to B. Okay, and we're always trying to write ratios in the simplest form. What does that mean? It means that we want to reduce. So anytime you have a ratio, you always want to get it to its most simplest form, which is to reduce the fractional ratio that you have. Okay, so let's look at an example of how to use ratios here. Alright, Mr. Sullivan has 15 Autobots and 12 Decepticons in his Transformer collection. Find the ratio of Autobots to Decepticons. Okay, so what we want to do here is write it out. So let's go ahead and write this. So find the ratio of Autobots to Decepticons. So we're looking at Autobots, and I'll keep it short, Auto to Decepticons. Okay, so we want to write this out so we can make sure we write the right numbers on the right location. So Autobots to Decepticons, Autobots are going to go in the top, which means it's going to be 15. Decepticons are going to be 12, so we're going to go ahead and put that. And remember, we want to write this down as the simplest form, so that means this is divisible. We can divide both of these fractions by, let's see here, what's the common value here? I think you could divide both of these by 3. So we're going to divide that by 3, divide that by 3, and simplify. So that means that this is going to be 5 over 4, and that's the simplest form for the ratio right here. All right, let's look at B now. For B, they want to find you want to find the ratio of Decepticons to the total Transformers. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put Decepticons over the total. Okay, well, Decepticons there are 12, and total they don't give us a total, but we can add those together. So we have 15 and 12, and those two can be combined. That's going to give us 27. And again, we want to be able to simplify. 12 is divisible by 3, and 27 is divisible by 3. So that means that we can reduce this, and that'll give us 4 over 9. And so there's our ratio in the simplest form. Alright, so here's another example. Mr. Burst has been learning how to tie his brand new kits. Yesterday he attempted to tie these pearly white sneakers 18 times. He was successful only 6 times. Alright, so find the ratio of the number of times he was not successful, so number of times he was not successful, to the total number of attempts. Okay, so again, we're talking this through so we can understand and put the right numbers where they belong. So we're going to go ahead and write this down as a ratio. This is going to be the number of times not successful, okay, over the total attempts. Okay, so if we look at the amount of attempts, let's start with that. So he attempted to tie these pearly white sneakers 18 times. So well, that's pretty simple. That 18 goes over here. Okay, then he brings up then they're asking for the ratio of the number of times he was not successful. Well, he was successful 6 times So to find out how many he was not successful, well, we're just going to go ahead and subtract 18 minus 6. Well, that will give us 12. So 12 was the number of times he was not successful. So it would be 12 out of 18. And you want to be able to reduce this. Both are divisible, or at least you can take out a 6 here on both of these. So that means that you're left with 2 over 3. And there's our simplest form of the ratio. So again, talk through it, make sure you understand what goes where. So number of not successful to the number of total attempts, put the right numbers. Okay, so now we're going to go into what happens when you have two ratios that are equal to each other. Well, you end up with a proportion. Okay, so a proportion is an equation that states that two ratios are equivalent. Are equivalent means that they are equal. Okay, the general form of the proportion is given below. A divided by B equals C divided by D, where B cannot be 0, D cannot be 0. Again, we talked about how these numbers can't be 0. You cannot solve when any of these denominators are 0. Okay, so one of the ideas here is why are they equal? So let me give you an example. So let's say over here I have 2 over 3. Well, 2 over 3 is going to be equal to, well, let me do 20 over 30. So here's an example of a proportion. You know that 2 over 3 does equal 20 over 30. It's just 10 times bigger between the 2/3 and the 20 over 30. Now, one way you can check is by doing cross multiplication, which is what we're going to be talking about right now. So if I were to look at this proportion right here, one way to know if it's equal is to cross multiply. So if I multiply 2 times 30, well, 2 times 30 is 60, and 3 times 20 is equal to 60. Therefore, it is a proportion. Okay, so the ratios must be the same, must be equal. Alright, so let's talk a little bit more about this cross multiplication. So cross multiplication is to do cross products of a proportion that are equal. So here you have 3/4 equal to 6/8, and we want to see if it's proportional, see if it's equal. So we're just going to go ahead and cross multiply. We're going to multiply 3 times 8. So 3 times 8 is right here. It's going to be equal to 24. And we're also going to check that 6 and 4, well, 6 times 4 is 24, and therefore both of these ratios are proportional, they're equal. Okay, so let's go ahead and now move to some examples of how we're going to use cross multiplication to solve. Alright, so here are our examples. Let's start with the first one here. 22 divided by 6 equals x divided by 15. So in order for us to solve proportions, we're going to do the following. We're going to go ahead and cross multiply. That's the way we want to solve these proportions. So we're going to go ahead and multiply 22 times 15. So that means I'm going to need my calculator. So let's bring it over here. And we're going to go ahead and cross multiply, which means we're going to multiply 22 by 15. And we're going to multiply 6 times x. So we're going to write this as 6x. So the first thing we want to do is let's change this 22 and 15, multiply those numbers and get that as one number. So 22 times 15, and we get 330. So we're going to go ahead and write this as 330 equals 6x. Now, you already know how to solve. We've been going through all these multi-step equations. This is a simple one-step equation from here. What we want to do is divide everything by 6, because you have a 6 next to the x. Again, it implies that you're multiplying. So instead of multiplying, we're going to divide. We're going to divide this out. And we're going to go ahead and solve for x. And 6 cancels. 330 divided by 6. So we're going to take our answer of 330 and divide that by 6. And we get 55. So our answer is going to be 55. So we're going to just write down x equals 55. Okay, and there's our answer. Alright, let's go on to another example. 9 times 12. We're going to multiply those two, so it's going to be 9 times 12. And that has to equal to the cross multiplication of 2 times m, so 2m. Alright, let's take our calculator now. and multiply 9 times 12. That's going to give us 108. So this is 108 times 2m. Again, any number in front of a variable implies that it's going to multiply, so opposite of multiplication is division, so multiply both sides by 2. Now, I'm going to kind of go a little bit faster than this. 108 divided by 2, well, that's going to equal to 54. So m is 54. You can check it in your calculator, but that is the right answer. Alright, let's move on to something a bit more harder. 5 over 13 equals k minus 4 divided by 39. So we're going to go ahead and, again, cross multiply. 5 times 39 equal to 13. Okay, and then here's the important thing. We want to put a parentheses around the k minus 4. That way we can recognize it as one thing. So that means it's 13 times k minus 4. So we want to put parentheses here so we can indicate that 13 is multiplying both k and negative 4. So let's take our calculator, multiply 5 times 39. 5 times 39. And we're going to get 195. And that's going to equal to, now we want to distribute, so we want to go ahead and multiply 13 times k is 13k. Multiply 13 times 4. See, 13 times 4, I don't know that one. 13 times 4. And we get 52. So minus 52. Alright, now we want to go ahead and solve this two-step equation. So first thing we want to do is we want to add 52 on both sides. Oops, that's almost a mistake there. Again, we want to get rid of our so-so friend, so we're going to get rid of this 52 first before we get rid of the 13. So we're going to add 52 on both sides. Alright, so that's going to equal to, no, this will be 13k. Let's add those together real quick. So this would be 195 plus 52 is 247. Now last step is to get rid of our best friend here at 13. Divide both sides by 13 because it is multiplying with the k. 13's cancel out. Okay, 247 divided by 13. And we get 19. So 19 will be our answer for k. Okay? Alright, moving along. Let's go ahead and look at 3r over 5 equal to 36 over 15. Alright, again, cross multiply. 3r times 15, well, 3 times 15 is going to be 45r. And then 5 times 36, I'm going to need my calculator for that. I'm just going to go ahead and just multiply that. 36 times 5 is going to be 180, so I'm just moving along a little bit faster. Alright, we want to divide both sides by 45. Get rid of that 45 in front of the r. Okay, now 180 divided by 45, this is going to equal to 4. Alright, let's move on to the last example. 7 over 112 equals c minus 3 over 8. Again, you want to cross multiply, but before we go any further, we need to put some parentheses around the c minus 3. That way we can not make a mistake that we need to distribute when we do this multiplication. So we're going to go ahead and multiply 7 times 8. 7 times 8 is going to, well, if you don't remember, you can always just check. 7 times 8. Okay, 7 times 8 is 56. Okay, and this is going to be 112 times c minus 3. Okay, so 56 equals to, let's go ahead and distribute this out. 112 times c is 112c. 112 times 3, well, I'm going to need the calculator for that. (112) times 3 is 336. You have a positive and a negative, so this will stay as a negative 336. And we're gonna go ahead now. Alright, so we gotta get rid of this 336, gotta get rid of my so-so friend before I get rid of my good friend of 112. So we're gonna get rid of the 336 by adding 336 on both ends of the equation. We go ahead and add 336 plus 56, and these 336 are going to cancel. So 336 plus 56, and we get 392, and that's going to equal to 112C. Alright, last step is get rid of this best friend of 112, divide both sides by 112. Okay, so right over here, C, those are going to cancel, get our calculator out, 392, and divide that by 112. And we get 3.5, so we'll just leave it as 3.5. Okay, if you want, you can go ahead and make this into a fraction. This could be thought of as 3.5 would be 7/2. 7.5, so either way, there's our answer. Okay, so here are some examples of these proportions. So remember that if you have something like k minus 4, let me highlight that right here, something like here, say you have k minus 4 or a c minus 3, okay, you want to be aware that you want to put parentheses around that so you can distribute the number that you're multiplying from across. Okay, alright. Alright, we're almost at the end of this video. Let's look at a word problem here. If in the first four games of the season, a soccer team scored a total of 10 goals. If this trend continues, how many goals will the team score in the 18 remaining games of the season? Alright, so the first thing is, what are we comparing? So let's go ahead and go back. Alright, we are comparing the games. Okay, so in the first 4 games of the season, the team scored goals. So we're looking at for 10 goals. So what we're comparing is games to goals. Okay, so let's go ahead and write a proportion based on that. So let's go ahead and put goals over the number of games. Alright, so now we have our proportion. So let's go ahead now and figure this out. So in the first 4 games, so we're going to put 4 underneath because that's the number of games. The soccer team scored a total of 10. Alright, so there's a proportion that we have, a ratio, 10/4. If this trend continues, so we're assuming that this will continue, and that means that for every 4 games they're going to score 10 more goals. Doesn't matter how, but they're going to score within those 4 games 10 more goals. How many goals will the team score in the 18th remaining games? Okay, so we want to know how many goals there's going to be. So we're going to go ahead and write 18 here for the number of games because it's telling us how many games. And we don't know how many more goals they're going to score, so we're going to call that our variable x. Alright, so 10/4 equals x over 18. Now, you know what to do. We're going to go ahead and cross multiply. So let's start with 10/18. Well, that's simple. 10/18 is going to equal to 180. And 4 times x is 4x. Okay, well, the 4 in front of the x is implied that it's being multiplied. We do the inverse operation, which is to divide. So let's divide by 4. And 180 divided by 4. Well, let's take out our calculator. And we're going to take 180 divided by 4. And we get 45. So x is going to equal to 45. And therefore, if we go back to the problem, how many goals did they score? How many goals could they score? So that means that they could score 45 goals. Okay. Don't forget to do your summary at the end of this video summarize what a proportion is, what a ratio is, and a little bit maybe about cross multiplication.